Hi, and welcome back to the AITX Community Podcast, the show where we go deep on some of the most interesting AI engineers, entrepreneurs, operators, and researchers across the state of Texas. I'm Michael Dagler, and I'll be filling in this intro for your host, Jake O'Shea, as he is still on his honeymoon. Our mission with this podcast is to pull back the curtain on what's really going on in AI in a way that's engaging and accessible for anybody excited about the future of this technology. We specifically chose Texas because we believe the Texas engineering community is seriously underrated. People are building incredible products and solving hard technical challenges, and our hope is that this podcast can expose some of that exciting work to the rest of the world. This week's guest is Doa Jafri, a lifelong learner who taught herself to code as a kid, started small businesses, and joined startups right after college. She is currently a senior engineering manager at Twilio, where she leads a research team for AI and emerging technology. Some of their accomplishments include an AI-based assistant with a RAG-based system, and also identifying MCP early and deploying servers for the future of the engineering community. I'm really excited for what she has to say in this podcast, and I hope you are too. So with that, let's get into the rest of the podcast.
Awesome. We are live.
Yay!
Doa Jafri, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm so pumped.
Absolutely. To start, would love to kind of give the listeners some context on who you are and your story. So I guess maybe the first question is, tell me kind of about yourself and your personal story, and specifically kind of what got you interested in engineering and technology.
Yeah, so I actually started coding in middle school. I grew up in Texas. It was hot. It was summer. There was nothing to do. And I remember opening a web page for the first time because some show I was watching told me to. And I remember clicking right-click inspect and then being like, I can see the words here. And I just started changing them, and it changed, and it was really exciting. So yeah, I was just like, whoa, I can change the internet. And that's really how I got into it. And there were a lot of really cool resources online. And I very much consider myself a creative. And to me, I really saw the browser as a canvas, just another tool and an art piece I could use. So I was building cool stuff on there. And I found a community online that I did this for. Started my first business as a kid.
In middle school?
In middle school,
Cool.
yeah. It started out with just Neopets money. I think I was probably
Nice.
like the richest kid on Neopets, if you remember that
Oh yeah, I played
game.
a lot of Neopets.
Yeah. I think it still exists. I looked it up the other day.
Nice.
So
Neopets and Webkins was the other one that I would play with my brother and sister. I don't know if you were into Webkins at all, but
no, I don't remember what. I mean, it sounds familiar, but
it was less like fantasy, like dragons and stuff, and more like little bunny rabbits or whatever, but same
Got it.
kind of concept.
same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neopets were super cool though. So you built like a Neopet credit site?
I would code things that people could embed onto their pages.
Cool. Okay.
On Neopets. And so people would pay me in Neopet coin or whatever it was. And I was charging a lot because there was a lot of demand. And then one day someone was like, will you take real money? And I was like, I guess I will. And I hadn't thought about it. And that's kind of how it started. And then it evolved into, of course, like building websites and apps and all of that kind of stuff. And it was just kind of a side hobby I always had, to be honest.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So taught yourself to code in middle school, earning buku neobucks.
Exactly.
Did you like continue that through high school, or what happened as you graduated high school and moved into your adult life?
Yeah, I mean, that skill set always stayed with me, so it was like in high school, we were all using Zanga and everyone needed that customized or whatever it was we were doing. And then in college, it was like, my friend's frat website. And then naturally, it kind of graduated to a friend reached out and was like, hey, I'm doing a startup. Can you build an app? And I was like, I don't know, I'll try. So yeah, it just kind of evolved that way.
Cool. And so you went to school, same as me, at UT. We were talking about this earlier, but we both have a degree in political science and government.
Yeah.
Like, I'm curious, what drew you to study that instead of something like computer science or something that you were already kind of doing in high school?
A lot of reasons. I went and talked to professors in the CS department, and a lot of them didn't know how to code. And so my logic at the time, I was like, well, I already know how to code. Why would I take this class?
Yeah.
What I was more interested in was how people work and how people work at scale. How do people relate to each other? I thought that was really interesting. And if I was going to a really big university, what a great place to learn that. And so, yeah, I chose political science. And man, it has helped me so much in my career. Just understanding the dynamics of organizations, people, even like rebellion and like change in a society over time. I don't know. All of that is stuff you kind of end up thinking about when you're structuring an organization or taking one through change.
Yeah, building consensus.
Yeah.
Yesterday we were talking with Jade, who I mentioned to you. She's reading a book now called like Third World to First by Lee Kuan Yew, the founder of the modern country of Singapore.
Yeah.
And she was like, there's so many corollaries to like his chess moves and like building a startup. Like there's very clear lines. Like you're building consensus, you're balancing different demands from different customers and stakeholders, et cetera. So anyways, yeah, that definitely kind of resonates. It was a cool degree. It was a lot of fun.
It was really interesting. Yeah.
So you graduate from UT. What's kind of next? What direction did you go in the professional world? Did you want to still stay in coding because you knew how to code, or?
No, so I took a wild left turn, and I moved to New York to be a runway model. I had been scouted in college. I was modeling a little bit, and one thing I noticed is there were no South Asian women or women of color on the runways in New York. Some student had done a tally, and it was like 99% Caucasian.
Wow.
And so I just got this crazy dream. I was like, what if I could be the first like South Asian American girl to walk New York Fashion Week? And I honestly didn't think I could do it, but I tried and I did. And in 2013, I debuted New York Fashion Week. I did my runway thing. I walked around the world. And it was just a really awesome life experience where I got to do something crazy, swing big. And to this, girls would reach out to me and just tell me how important it was that they saw someone like me, in those magazines, on the runways. So it felt very fulfilling, and I think it gave me a little bit of delusion, which you need in the startup world, like a healthy amount of delusion that you can do something that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
Everyone around me was like, are you crazy? Like, you can't do that. And I was like, watch me. So yeah, it was really fun. And so I was in New York. Modeling does not pay. The cover of Vogue, famously, you get paid $200 for that.
Wow.
So it is not a money generating activity. And so I was in New York, and a friend reached out and was like, hey, I started a company, but we hired some developers in Indonesia and they disappeared. We're launching in a month. Can you help me? Like, you made my frat website. And I was like, I could try. And I really enjoyed it. And that was kind of my foray into startups and some of the early roles I took.
Very cool. I had no idea that you walked at New York Fashion Week. That's very, very cool.
Yeah, it was a different world. It's fun.
That's awesome. So you go from being a runway model to now helping startups kind of get up and get launched. Did you like join that team formally, or was it more of kind of like a interim, like get things tidied up and then pass it along to an engineering team? Like,
I was the engineering team, basically. And so I joined to clean them up, but that company didn't last very long, actually, which is maybe a bit unsurprising. Yeah, what happens with startups. So, I did join that team, and then many after it. And that was kind of the niche that I started in, was founding engineer, early engineer. Which retrospectively, I really don't recommend to people who are getting started in their degree or in their technical career, because you have little to no mentorship, you have really high stakes. It's just a very, very tough environment to work in. On the other hand, it's like what forged me. So when I started entering these larger companies, engineers with the same experience as me, they had never made choices about libraries. They hadn't done deployment. They had only touched like a very specific piece of the pipeline. And I had done it all. So I was able to think more holistically. I had been close to the business. I knew what they cared about. So yeah, it's a really tough environment, but I learned a lot from it.
Kind of like getting thrown in the deep end and it's sink or swim,
Exactly.
You were able to swim, luckily.
Yeah.
So I noticed, like, just kind of looking your professional background, you moved into, and this is probably because of this type of experience and managing trade-offs, et cetera, but you moved into kind of leadership or executive roles at a pretty young age. Like, I'm curious, was that due to this founding engineer experience where you were just best suited, or what kind of led, what were you thinking about in terms of moving from kind of an individual contributor builder into more of like a leadership management type role?
Yeah. So honestly, my early career was quite thoughtless. Like I took the opportunities as they came. I didn't plan that move. I joined a company, and my second week there, it was like maybe the week before our first big product launch, the CTO and director of engineering got fired. I don't know, who knows, drama.
Yeah.
So all of the leadership left the week before a big launch, and everyone on the team freaked out. Like it was just like full freak out. And when things get crazy, I stay calm and I make a plan. So I was just like, hey guys, it's okay. Let's just do this. Everyone sit down, do this, this, this. And so they pulled in the senior most engineer on the team, and they were like, hey, we'd like to make you the leader of this team. And he was like, hard pass, but you should put Doa in that position. She can do it. And I was like, okay, I'll try, which was kind of my motto in my early career. Like whatever comes, I'll step up to the plate, I'll bat, I'll try it. And it was supposed to be a temporary thing. I ended up being, interim CTO for almost the entire 2 years I was there. And wow, that was a learning curve.
Yeah.
It was really intense, but I also did, I think, work that is still important to me today.
Nice.
So.
Well, tell me, like, what did that learning curve look like? What were some of the big takeaways from that experience that you kept with you?
Yeah, I think, it was an incredible experience, right? Like I was very young, and I was working with execs from Samsung. I was working with amazing people like Marie Kondo that I respected, whose books I'd read. So it felt very glamorous, and it was starting to consume my life, because when you're on a growth curve like that, there's not much room for anything else.
Yeah.
And a takeaway I had at the end of it was that no one cares that I'm an exec. Like nobody in my real life gives a shit, And I am really grateful that I experienced that early, because I think I could have easily spent my entire career chasing a title or something like that. And when I was in that position, I realized that having the power, the influence, the title, it didn't really fill my cup at the end of the day. And I think it was a pivotal moment in my career where I shifted and started focusing more on impact. Like, what do I really want to do? Not like what my title is, who cares? But I think you asked specifically about does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, so on one dimension, yes, you definitely answered the question. I guess maybe to reframe it though, what would be advice you would give to people navigating similar types of transitions where they're thrust into a leadership role and maybe they don't feel ready for it, but they still need to figure out how to do the job?
Yeah. I would say a couple of things. I'd say just because you're in a position of authority, it does not mean you need to be authoritative.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is there are many different leadership styles. And more than hitting the metric, more than doing whatever you're being asked to do, taking the time to find your leadership style is going to matter a lot more when it comes to your long-term success. So for me, it's servant leadership, which is a style that just really works for me, and especially works for people who are doing this transition in the same way. I went from a respected peer, to suddenly being the boss, the direct manager of these people. And so servant leadership felt very natural for me and akin to the way I was already leading. So anyone who's making that transition, it's much easier than pretending to be the boss, I guess. Because you haven't changed, right? And if you change suddenly, people will treat you differently. And you'll lose the soft power you had as a strong IC on the team. So I'd say that. The second thing I'd say is you've got to find mentorship. The only reason I was able to swim in that scenario was because I reached out to people for help. And a lot of times it's hard to ask for help. Like, hey, what am I getting in return? But I found over and over that people were so generous with their time. You know, people love to support someone who's taking a big swing, doing something cool. So just ask. Like, the worst is they won't reply, and who cares?
Yeah. That's really great advice. I think two threads I want to pull on. One is like, define servant leadership for me, and like, what does that style actually look like in practice? And then the second is maybe on mentorship. How do you identify potential mentors? Did you just like search them up on the internet? Were these people from like your life in the past that you reach back out to? Like, for someone looking for a mentor, how would you recommend them think about or go about that?
Yeah. Anyone who has inspired you in any time in your career. So there was someone I had come across at a previous company who had handed me a management book and was like, hey, you should think about this stuff. So he was my first call. And he really shaped my early thinking around management. And then aside from that, I was just trying to figure out how to do this. So I was reading blogs online and things people had posted. I just reached out to those people. And you know, a couple of them replied, and it was awesome. And then also just going to events, you get a much higher response rate when you go meet someone in person. When you tell them your story, you know, everyone's so much more willing to help. So those were the three routes I kind of used in terms of what servant leadership is. So authoritative, there's this idea where like, I'm the boss and I tell people what to do. But that's really silly when you're trying to do something big, right? When you're really leaning on experts who you want to go deep and deeper than you can go, right? As the manager. So servant leadership is all about getting the smartest people you can find and then doing whatever you need to do to get the obstacles out of the way for them to do the good work. And I think especially for people who are high achieving ICs that go into management, that's tough because they're used to being the star. You're used to like pushing all the commits, being a 100x engineer, getting the dopamine hit, and knowing you're good. All of that dissipates when you move into management. You don't get the daily dopamine hits anymore. No one can look at a log and say, this guy's great or this girl's great, right? All of a sudden, your value, whether or not you're doing a good job, first of all, you're probably not. I think it takes 2 years to really get good at management.
Yeah.
So first of all, you're probably not doing a good job, which is hard. But second of all, even when you are doing a good job, it's sometimes intangible. It's the success of the people on your team.
Yeah.
And it's giving those wins back to them, and it's attributing that to them. So you really have to take yourself out of the spotlight for servant leadership. And the result is teams that do amazing stuff and teams that are incredibly loyal to you. And so I've had a lot of people follow me company to company. And, you know, when I work in fractional roles and stuff, there's people I can pull on who may be working elsewhere that can just lend me a piece of their brain. And it's my preferred way of working.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of advice out there of fake it till you make it, right? And imposter syndrome is a real thing. So to some extent, that's probably correct. But I think sometimes when people get moved into leadership or management positions, they think fake it till you make it means be authoritative, act like a manager,
Exactly.
tell people what to do.
Exactly.
And so I like how this is kind of the other side of that coin, which is really like, don't tell people what to do, align them on a goal and kind of empower them to do it, right? And that's really your job.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you brought this up because that's exactly it. It's the antithesis of fake it till you make it. Don't fake it. Be honest about what you're learning and get everyone on your team. Say we're doing this together and I'm here to help. And, you know, be relentless about that North Star vision. If you build a vision, everyone believes it. If you fight leadership to keep that true, that's all anyone wants. They want to build something awesome and they want that North Star not to change.
Your job is just to keep that aligned and remove obstacles. I like that. So you mentioned kind of because of this leadership style, people have followed you into interim roles, lend you their brain, et cetera. Like, tell me a little bit about your career kind of following this first initial experience of being thrust into like a CTO position. Where did that
Yeah.
take you? I know you've worked at a lot of different companies. Like, tell me just kind of more of your professional story.
Yeah. So after that experience, I could have fake it till you make it, continued at that level, but I felt it was really important to go work for someone I could learn from. So I did that. Yeah, I took a lower level role at a larger company, and I was able to fly up the ranks pretty quickly because I knew what it was like to be an executive, and I was able to bridge the mentality, that gap between an IC and someone who's like responsible for the outcome of the company.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot. When my son was born, I started rethinking what work would look like for me. And at the time, I was at Glossier. I had set up a bunch of teams. My style is high autonomy teams, high trust. And so I'd kind of set these teams up. It would take me maybe 3 months, 1 month, sometimes 6. And then they would kind of run themselves. And I'd be sitting there doing nothing, and then I'd go set up another team or whatever needed to be done. And at the same time, I was getting a ton of reach outs from early stage companies who needed technical co-founders. It wasn't really worth it for me. It's not really worth it for a lot of people to make that bet. And so I started thinking, hey, if I can run these teams, if I can set them up quickly like this, make them autonomous, I could do that for these startups. And so I threw it out there. The people who were reaching out to me, asking me to be a technical co-founder, I was like, hey, what about this thing? Fractional, And a couple of folks went for it. That's how it started. My first year, I connected with a lot of other people that were doing similar things and published an article on the standards for this type of work. And it really kind of took off. And sometimes I still get TikTok ads that have my article in the background, and it's a random person being like, I can teach you how to become an exec in 10 days. Yeah. And I'm always like, this is not cool. So it was like, it became a dirty word, like fractional exec, like became a completely different thing in the space of 5 years. I think because, layoffs started happening and people were remote and COVID happened and people were just looking for more flexible work. But a lot of times those people don't necessarily have the skills to do this type of work. So it's really changed in the past 4 years, that whole space.
Walk me through what that work looks like, right? Is it coming in and setting up a team? Like if you're a startup CEO and you need some technical talent and they reach out to Doa, what does Doa come in and actually effectuate within the company?
Yeah. I think first I figure out how much impact I can have and what their problems are. So usually founders without technical co-founders, they've taken a swing at it themselves.
Yeah.
So it starts with like an assessment of like, what did you do and what do you need? And so pre-AI and post-AI, this looks very different.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you can do so much more now.
You can vibe code and actually push it to GitHub, whereas before it was maybe Bubble or some of these other low-code tools.
Yeah, which take a lot of specialization. Like you have to learn how to use Bubble. Like
For sure.
You can't even hand it to an engineer and they don't know how to do it either, So it's definitely like a tool you have to specialize in, and some people do. But I think in those early stages of the company where you're finding PMF, great. That's what AI tools are for.
Yeah.
You don't need to bring in an entire team to do that anymore. But back to your question, what do I come in and do? So a lot of times it's helping people understand. A lot of times people come to me and say, hey, I need to build out a team and product. And I talk about their bet and we come to the conclusion that they don't. Like they have a fundamental belief that they need to test, and they can usually test that without building a product. So finding out if that fundamental truth is true.
Can you give me an example of that being true? I think I know where you're going, but I think it'd be helpful to hear some examples.
Yeah. So I talked to a friend recently who came to me with an idea. I hope it's okay that I'm talking about her idea.
You can edit it out and
if not,
if it's not.
Okay, yeah.
It's fine.
So she came to me with an idea. She wants to do sports betting for women. And so she was like, hey, I need to build out a team. Where do I find the engineers? How do I, design it, feature set, all of that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, let's strip this all the way back. What's your conviction? what do you think is true that will make this succeed? And she said, I think women want to bet on sports. And I was like, great. How can you test that? How can you tell me that's true? Like, can you start a local betting league at these events you're already going to? Like, what can you do to show that women do in fact want to do this? And not only that, but how many and how frequently, and do they come back? And if you have those numbers, then build the product, because that's expensive.
Yeah.
But you don't need a product to prove your fundamental truth or your conviction. And so that's what happens a lot of times. It just goes back to those very basics of product and entrepreneurship and proving it as much as you can before you get to the product. Post AI, you don't have to go get the team in the middle. Now you can build the prototype with AI. It really doesn't matter how well it works, right? It's not going to work well. It's fine. Let your customers touch it, let them tell you what they think, see if it works, get a little help to deploy it.
Yeah,
And
but like showcase the value proposition and validate those assumptions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, doing that groundwork first. So once that's clear, if they do have conviction, if they do have some traction, then it's talking about who can we bring in and how can we do that as lean as possible. So is there a technical vision that supports your vision? Can you really defend the fact that you need to hire a ton of expensive engineers to do this? Or can you just do this low code? And so technical strategy for fundraising was one part of it. The second part is finding the right people. So I help a lot of people hire. A lot of times they have to hire founding engineers. How would they know how to do that?
Yeah.
How do they know who's good? Like someone said their cousin codes, so they brought them on. And a lot of times I get brought in for that. Like the disaster has already happened, and they've got someone who's very difficult to work with or doesn't listen or care about the business. So sometimes I come in to sort that out. Sometimes it's to help hire and put that first team together.
So this is something I'd love to pick your brain on, like hiring a founding engineer. Tons of founders that I work with need to then go hire a founding engineer.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they have a CTO, oftentimes they don't though. Like, what makes a great founding engineer?
Yeah.
Like, if you have any frameworks or ways to think about it, it sounds like probably not people right out of school that don't have some initial experience. Like, how do you go about finding really great founding engineers? Are there any kind of patterns that you've noticed?
I think the best way to find a good founding engineer is find someone who cares about impact.
Okay.
And is aligned with your mission. Because for a really senior engineer, there's not financial incentive to do this. So
almost always taking a pay cut.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, adding a level of instability to their life and working more hours for it. So why would someone do that? It's because they really care about what you're building. And there's a lot of people out there who will not do it for impact reasons. And those aren't the people that you want, really. They're not the people who are going to stay. They're going to have a lot of demands. A lot of times they actually want to be co-founders without doing the work of the co-founder. And typically when you're looking for a founding engineer, that's not what you want, right?
Yeah,
you maybe already have your technical co-founder or have chosen to be a solo founder. So
I've given advice before. It might be bad advice, like curious your take, but like when you're hiring a founding engineer, if they want that CTO role or title, be like, hey, you got to like earn it. You'll come in as a founding engineer and over the next 4 to 6 months, like prove yourself. And then we'll have a discussion after 6 months and kind of reassess the situation and see if you've kind of performed at the level of a CTO.
Yeah, I wouldn't even make that promise because the truth is there's this framework called Pioneer Settler City Planner. Have you heard of it?
No, tell me about it.
So there's like 3 types of engineers fundamentally. You're the pioneer. You're like scrappy. You build something quick. You code incredibly fast. You get the prototype out. There's the settler, which is like, okay, we're a real business now. Like we need DevOps, we need security, we need to scale the features infinitely. It needs to be a solid product. And then there's the city planners. These are the guys at Meta, who are thinking about like, how do we optimize for a millionth of a second at giant scale, right? So in the startup world, the 2 you're playing with is the pioneer and the settler. A lot of people make the mistake of trying to hire a city planner just because, they worked at Google.
Yeah.
That probably means they're going to be terrible at your startup because they're not the pioneer. And so the person you're talking about that comes in and wants the CTO role, it's a pioneer. They've done this several times, but fundamentally they don't have the skill set that will allow you to grow past the initial phase. And almost always that first person that you bring in, people end up parting ways very quickly with them.
Yeah.
So if someone comes in wanting to be a CTO, it's kind of a red flag to me.
Okay.
I think that person is going to be a lead engineer, and you should talk to them about that, about the value of an IC role, about the value of being a tech lead and being the technical person and not anchoring on a title. And, you know, work at the title however you want it to be, lead engineer, founding engineer, whatever it is. But CTO, I think, is a strategic role with a different skill set. This person is going to help you raise. That's typically not the pioneer hacker that wants to raise, wants to talk to people, wants to manage people. This person definitely does not want to manage people. Yeah. So it's just a different job. And
would you say the CTO is more of the settler archetype? I love this example, by the way.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I think CTOs can come from all different places, but they have to be either product or business minded.
Got it.
So they can really be anywhere in that scale as long as they understand that framework, as long as they understand that there's a time and place for every type.
Yeah.
So whatever their type is, doesn't matter. You know, if they're not authoritative, if they understand the business needs, they'll adapt to any of those types.
I've found that in the kind of pairings that have worked really well that I've seen, the CTO is exactly what you said. They're either very, very great and involved on the product end, kind of have like a vision in those chops, or they're very involved on the business end where they enjoy talking to customers, they help with the fundraising, they help close deals and work with the implementation teams to make them feel comfortable, et cetera. So that's a good framework.
Yeah, the CTO he's a translator.
Yeah.
So, or she, they have to sit between the engineers and the business. Very different from building the first product.
Yeah. What, for non-technical people trying to interview technical talent, what are some easy like questions that you can ask, or how would you recommend them going about that?
Yeah, I think you should get help.
Yeah.
I think you should find an engineer you trust, anyone you've talked to, hire them if you have to. It's just very difficult to assess technical chops.
For sure.
No matter what you ask, what you're really assessing is how well they can talk about their code, not how well they actually code.
Interesting. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so some of the best engineers I have ever worked with, they don't represent themselves well. And when I was coding a lot, I'm a very extroverted person, as you know. I'm like I'm happy to talk to anyone. But when I'm coding a lot, something happens to my brain, and I don't know, my brain starts speaking like 0 and 1 and logic loops, right? Like you map these extensive logic loops in your brain when you're coding. And when you're doing that, and then suddenly you have to talk to people, it's terrifying. Like I just had a bunch of anxiety about talking to people when I was coding intensely, because unlike code, which is logical and binary, people are not logical and binary.
Yeah.
And it's very intimidating. So it's really funny. Like when I'm coding intensely, I become an introvert. I don't want to talk to anybody. It freaks me out. And that's just not who I fundamentally am. So I think some of the best engineers, they really struggle to represent themselves and talk to people. And that makes it difficult to interview them without being able to like look at their code and look at their work.
Yeah,
if someone
understand if it's good or not. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's a lot of prolific coders that push out a lot of code, but it's not good code, especially in the era of AI. It's like slop code, like you have no idea. And I even see engineering managers getting tricked by this, and architects, you know, like, oh, this young person on the team is so fast. They push out so much code. Okay, and then 6 months later, they're also the reason that all the bugs exist because they were just vibe coding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they didn't actually think about their code. So like speed is not a good indicator. Self-presentation is not a good indicator. Open source is usually a good sign.
Meaning they contributed to open source projects.
If they've contributed to open source successfully, and especially like important projects, if you can understand enough to know whether an open source project is useful, you can look at the stars on GitHub.
Yeah.
It's like, how many stars does it have? When was it last updated? How big is the contribution community? If they're contributing to something like that, that's a pretty good sign. Because
there's a level of like community vetting of that from great technical talent that manage or maintain the open source project. Right?
Well, sometimes, you know, people contribute bad code. to open source.
Fair.
But what they do is they're working with others, which is really important for founding engineers. And they are being exposed to best practices, and they're proactive because they went out and fixed a library that they did not have to fix. It's probably because they love coding and think about the bigger picture, and those are great signs.
Yeah. I was talking to someone else about open source, and he ended up building his own open source projects just because the other one he was using wasn't very good. He's obviously very technically gifted, and I've noticed that with some other founders as well, where they'll tell me about, oh yeah, I realized that this open source thing that I was using was way too bloated, so I just like rebuilt it from scraps and like gave just the functionality I needed, and I was like, oh, okay, this person gets it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they're talented.
Exactly.
Cool. So you mentioned a little bit about like how coding's changed and why speed isn't a good indicator now of capability. Like, tell me more about how you've seen the role of engineering change, kind of given the rise of AI generated code and like language models.
Yeah. It's so funny because people have such big feelings about it, engineers.
Yeah.
Anytime I post something, even something benign, like trying to help people use AI assisted code, I get like a ton of people commenting like, no, this is not real, like crazy comments.
Really?
Yeah, just really upset about the existence of AI assisted coding. So I think most engineers honestly feel threatened, very threatened. And that's understandable. It is going to take parts of our job. What was the original question?
Just like how has coding and
How has it
engineering
changed?
as a role changed? Yeah, because of this.
I think every part of engineering is going to change. Right now, I think it really excels at helping you with chores and simple tasks.
Yeah.
The stuff you're wasting your time on.
Unit tests, things like that.
Yeah. So I think the role of engineers is shifting to, we're all technical leads and architects now. We are all reviewing code that is generated, and we are getting good at writing tasks in a way that works for LLMs, right? Yeah. It's augmenting us. But even this, I think, is a blip in time. You know, I think there's so many startups out there right now that are solving other parts of developers' jobs, and we'll continue to see that explosion. So I would say right now, if you're not using AI to augment your process to make you a better engineer, even if that's just reviews with CodeRabbit or something like that, you're behind. You have to get on the train and start augmenting parts of your workflow. That's a far cry from like autonomous coding agents. That does not work. It does not exist. We've got some time to get there. It's something I'm very excited about.
So you think it will eventually exist? It's just a matter of time and training, basically?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so, but I don't think it's going to remove engineers. Like, you're still going to need engineers. The number of legacy code bases that exist out there are crazy. And then also, this is all derivative, right? Standards for coding, they were invented by people. Yeah. And you start to think, okay, well, if AIs are doing the majority of the coding, why would they be coding in languages that were designed to be human readable, like Rails? Why would they even do that? And so when you really talk about AI coding autonomously, I don't think it's at the abstraction level that we are using right now. It's going to be something else entirely.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know if you've seen this video clip, but it's two voice models communicating with each other.
Beep
when
booping.
They realize it's another one, they beep boop. Yeah.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like, I don't think it still works, but probably 9 months ago, I was playing around with ChatGPT and I was like, give me this entire conversation, but compress it to the absolute minimum characters that you need or tokens that you need to understand the exact context.
Oh, that's so great.
Output a bunch of random characters, and I could put it into a new chat instance and it had all the context right there.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah. And I know there's other companies out there now that are working on like compressing prompts down to minimize the number of tokens, et cetera, because it ends up saving companies at a big scale a lot of money. So, I mean, that's what it makes me think of when you talk about AI like the future of fully autonomous coding, it's going to be a bunch of like ones and zeros and like binary that we as humans can't really understand.
You'll go down a level. Yeah. Like we've
Yeah.
added so many levels of abstraction on top of the base computer for us.
Yeah. So maybe this is
Yeah.
an interesting thing. I want, like, one of the goals of this podcast is to explain complex technical things in a way that anyone can understand. So let's talk a little bit about code and how it compiles, right? Like Python compiles down into, I believe it's like C or C++, which then compiles down into binary, or maybe there's an intermediary step. Like, what does that look like for kind of a non-technical person? Like, what are the layers of abstraction that we put on top of the ones and zeros and like electricity?
Yeah. That's such a great question. There's a really cool video where these people made a calculator with coffee beans.
Okay.
Because the number of coffee beans represent zeros and ones. And fundamentally, you can do math with that. So no electricity. It's just a ton of coffee beans and pipes creating a calculator. And I think if you're interested in this, that is a very visually powerful way to understand how computers work.
Okay.
So I would recommend checking that out as a starting point. Beyond that, I think the more important thing to focus on is the way the browser works.
Okay.
So the reason JavaScript became popular over some of these other languages you're talking about, C, et cetera, is because it was native to the browser and it had the ability to interact in real time, which previous coding languages could not do. And so when we moved to a web that was more interactive, not just display is like web 1.0, and then 2.0 is interaction. And you needed like different paradigms. You need to be able to take input in a different way.
Okay.
So in terms of how all that works, it's just layers stacked on top of each other for different purposes. It's fundamentally just translations of the same thing. So what the layers are, I don't know that they matter too much, to be honest.
Okay.
But what you should know is that even using electricity to do this and microchips, it's not a necessity. It's just the most efficient way we choose to do it. But you can compute with anything. Coffee beans.
I gotta
Yeah.
look up that coffee bean video.
Yeah.
I'll include it in the show notes or something like
Yeah.
that. Very cool. So maybe, I guess, pivoting back to your career. So you stepped into some of these fractional roles. I think also, did you kind of work internally at larger companies and spin up business units, like kind of intrapreneurship?
Yeah,
Tell
I
me
did.
a little about that experience.
It was really great. So, early stage can be really unstable.
Yes.
And I was really tired of jumping around so much, which is just part of being in that landscape. And so when I had the opportunity to do this within a larger company, I had done that already at some of these startups. One of the startups I worked at, we had this large user base that we weren't monetizing. And I managed to build a design system that automated my job. So 95% of my job, I built something to do it for me.
Nice.
And so then I was sitting around twiddling my thumbs and I was like, hey, there's a consumer base here that we could monetize. And so that was my first foray into trying product. And I was able to start a new vertical for that company and monetize this secondary side of the marketplace that they weren't monetizing. And so that was my first intrapreneur experience. And then, I've held a lot of engineering roles, but they'd always say, like, as soon as we were 1 PM down, they'd be like, Doa's got it. She doesn't need a PM. So I would end up doing a lot of hybrid EM PM roles. And this is actually really common. I talk to a lot of business-minded engineers who end up doing that, who play these hybrid roles.
Yeah.
Or a lot of times they have a PM partner, but they act more like a project manager because it's a technical product. And it's a really interesting space. So in terms of being an entrepreneur within a larger company, it's awesome because you have so much more opportunity.
Yeah.
At Twilio, for instance, my very first month there, I was given a preview to OpenAI's real-time speech-to-speech technology.
Cool.
And I was told, hey, connect this to our agents. And I was sitting there and thinking about it. And I was like, we're tying Greyhound to like a horse cart. It doesn't make sense. Like one is so fast as one is so slow. Like what can we really do with this real-time API, speech API? And I'm an immigrant, and when I was younger, I would translate for my parents all the time on the phone. My mom actually had a degree in English literature, but like the Southern drawl was not something she was understanding on the phone. So I would be her translator all the time. And I was talking to someone at Twilio.org, and we run the refugee call systems around the world for organizations like Red Cross. So what happens is people call in, like refugees who need help, sometimes in war zones, and they have to be like, hold please, we need to find a translator. And this could be like 2 a.m. at night. They find a translator that speaks that language somewhere in the world, they stitch them in, they hope they're on the line still. That's crazy. And so I was like, wait, we can solve this problem. Like we can solve this translator problem with technology. And within a week, people came together from across Twilio, built this amazing thing. We ended up launching it with OpenAI. We have a patent pending right now. And I mean, like, we're improving the world, you know?
So cool.
So all of that happened. I could never do that as a startup. The platform that you get from being an entrepreneur within a larger company, the things that are possible, the talent you have access to on the drop, it's unbelievable. So I really love doing it. It's pretty cool.
Very cool. Well, tell me more about like other experiences you've had with that. That's a really great story. So now kind of around the world, y'all are using speech-to-speech AI models to in real time translate different languages for refugees and people that are kind of in crisis situations?
We shipped a prototype, but we haven't fully implemented it yet. Because, you know, Twilio runs 911 call systems for like entire countries. So we very intentionally move slow, and text-to-speech is a really important part of that team's work, so that we have transcripts and a lot of downflowing products from there.
Makes sense.
So it's with our AI voice team, and I know they're working on it, and they're some of the smartest people I've ever worked with. So I think eventually we'll be using it at that speed. The big innovation there wasn't that we were doing it; it was that we were doing it at a speed that was conversational. So there was almost no delay, whereas traditionally, when you convert from text to speech, there's a much longer delay and it doesn't feel natural. So it's difficult for AI to do that and handle interruptions. And there's a whole bunch of other problems that they have to engineer around, like handling interruptions. So they're productizing it, and eventually we'll be using it.
Very cool. When you have a system that's speech to speech, is it possible to just layer on something that listens to that and then transcribes it?
Yes. And that's what OpenAI released. But there was a delay on it. And so some of the feedback we gave them while building this prototype was that we needed a lot faster. And OpenAI is awesome to work with. They move insanely fast, of course. And they took that feedback and started giving us the transcriptions. I think it's near real time now. This was a year ago. So.
I think like Meta, they have their AI app. I can't remember what it's called, but that's speech-to-speech models as well, so that it can be conversational in real time.
Exactly.
And it's just like dumb questions like generate me like a photo of a unicorn or whatever. So it's not super important to have transcripts, but I remembered seeing it and being very impressed with how realistic it felt because it was so real time.
I think it's the future, you know, and it's improving so quickly that it's amazing.
So I think that's a great example of AI positively impacting the world and the way the world works. What are other examples of that you've worked on, seen, or that you're like excited about that you just kind of know is a possibility in the future?
Yeah, I worked on a product for call centers a long time ago. And the working conditions of people in call centers are insane. Like they work 12-hour shifts and sometimes they're not allowed to go to the bathroom. Because it's all about like the numbers, right? And so I think we have so much opportunity to use AI to improve that for people, and improve those working conditions around the world. So I think just in generally, not just looking at voice and call centers, but I think people are going to have a lot more time, you know, and working conditions will improve because we can augment work. I think it was, there was a big leader, maybe of Deloitte or Bain, I'll check on it. Basically,
one of the big consulting firms.
Yes, there was a leader at one of the big consulting firms who said that in our lifetime, he thinks we're going to have a 3-day work week. And I believe that.
Yeah.
I think we will get to a level of efficiency and a level of employment where we have to value people differently.
Let's talk about level of employment. There's lots of, I guess, fears out there. We kind of talked about it earlier with engineers sometimes being skeptical or hesitant of AI, but we see it right now with big tech companies doing a lot of layoffs. I think part of that is just overhiring during kind of a COVID spike and now coming back down to earth. But what do you think the future of employment and building companies looks like when you can move so much faster with so much less headcount?
Yeah, I think early stage looks very different, right? You need way fewer engineers at that early stage. Once you're scaling, though, and especially if you're going into enterprise and you start having SLAs and guarantees and you're handling PII, in the short term, you still need humans to be doing that.
Yeah.
As exciting as the progress is, I think AI assisted coding is only going to take a subsection of the market at this moment. You're still going to need engineers. So how fast that changes could be very fast. You know, like everyone is sprinting towards AGI right now at the big companies. And I mean, it's the most incredible group of people that we have. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did that quicker than we expected.
Figure something out.
Yeah.
Well, so then what is, like, in a world with AGI, we're already seeing companies can be much more efficient with the same number of people. Whereas previously they would have had to scale headcount more linearly with the company growth. Like, what happens to all those people that are now maybe not getting hired because there's not these open roles? Like, when I think about it, I see a few different possibilities. One is there's just many more companies, right? It's easier than ever to start a company, even if it doesn't become $1 billion company. If there's 20 people working together making 10 million a year, everyone in that company is doing very, very well.
Yeah.
So, like, one possibility is there's just many, many more of those companies that are solving real problems or adding value to the world. They don't need to be huge publicly traded to be successful and for everyone there to do well. And then kind of this alternate version is no one's able to get a job and people aren't able to start their own businesses or monetize them effectively. Like, I don't know, where do you think the world is headed? And which one, I guess, appeals to you more? Well, the way I framed it, there's kind of like one good and one bad, which is probably not realistic, but I don't know. I guess tell me how you think about employment changing.
Yeah. I love your take on it because there's a new segment of the market that has opened up. There were so many niches and businesses where it did not make sense to spend $1 million a year on engineers. Well, now that's not the cost.
Yeah.
So all of those are open and up for play. So I think you're right. I think there is much more surface area for people to start small businesses if they have the gumption to do it. I also think, like, we're in this, like, corporate bubble, right? And I like to remind myself sometimes that everyone doesn't live in that bubble, you know?
Yeah.
Like, most people are actually just like plumbers and school teachers, you know? And yes, their jobs are going to be augmented and made easier. I think there's going to be a lot fewer people in this corporate class.
Yeah.
And I think they will choose different jobs, to be honest. I mean, it sounds uninteresting, but that's what will happen. Like,
That's a great point.
They will just do other things. A lot of people are going to trade schools because being a plumber is sometimes just as lucrative as being an engineer if you're at the lower levels. So I think people will just do different things. I also think that eventually, I mean, UBI is an inevitability.
Yeah.
You know, I'm kind of in the Andrew Yang camp.
Yeah.
On that being a necessity. And if we get to the point of UBI, then, as we saw during COVID, people are going to start asking, well, do I even want to work? And I think a lot of people are going to say, I don't want to work. I want to, I don't know, like micro farm and hang out with my children or whatever, make art, self-actualize, whatever people want to do, you know? So yeah, it will require some change in the government, going back to our political science backgrounds. I'm not sure that's going to be an unbloody revolution personally.
Yeah.
I hope it isn't.
Yeah.
But we're in for some change. But
For sure.
I don't think it's going to be like Wall-E, you know? Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's not going to be like that apocalyptic.
We all become 3D Pixar animated characters. You know, in that movie, it starts and it's like humans that look like normal humans, and then over time they like literally become Pixar characters.
Yeah. And they're like blobs in chairs, like watching TVs because AI does everything for them. Yeah, I don't think that's like our near-term reality at all.
On the point of UBI, I think Mark Cuban talked. This was several years ago, so I don't know if he still holds this opinion, but this idea of like make good work, right? Like you have, rather than direct payments to people via like a traditional UBI system, you instead have these jobs that the government funds, like walking kids from the school bus stop to the school. And these jobs that don't make sense economically or capitalistically, but it gives people something to do,
purpose,
where they can find purpose, value, etc., and they can get some payment for that. Just curious, like what your take on that is. That to me personally always seemed like a really interesting route, where it still gives people something to do. It now opens up this whole class of things that are good for the world, but don't necessarily make profit. So kind of in the current model just would never exist.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I grew up between Texas and Europe. Most of my family is in Europe, and it's in action there. Like in Holland, you know, if you're a retired person or, you know, there's several classes of people who are not traditionally employed who they pay to, you know, water flowers on the street and pick up trash and do this kind of stuff. And it's really, really important. And they've done a lot of studies in various European countries on like purpose, happiness, work, and this exact model that you're talking about. So yeah, I hope we can organize around that and value people and care less about the economics, the unit economics.
Yeah. We need enough surplus for that to be possible, but AI could be kind of the path to getting there.
Yeah, robot tax.
Yeah. I think a lot about like loneliness in the elderly. My grandmothers are now kind of up in age, and thankfully, like my brother lives near one, the other lives with my parents, so they have like some company and some community. But for many elderly folks, they don't. And like their kids, their grandkids, they won't call them very often, et cetera. And so there's like a huge loneliness epidemic. And I know there's companies out there now where college students will basically like get paid to hang out with elderly folks. And I love that idea. And I want there to be more opportunities like that.
Yeah.
You know, for high school kids, college kids, whatever.
I completely agree. I went to an old folks home near my house a lot growing up.
Yeah.
And my grandparents were far away, and it worked really well, to be honest.
Yeah.
But now I think you're seeing it in young people, because there's an entire generation where their parents were told, give the kid the phone early. They're going to be digital natives. They're going to know how to interact, right? And they did that, and actually it increased rates of depression, suicide, anxiety. And so you have this, you know, all of Gen Z now, not to mention all the other things they've had to deal with, unable to make relationships, or maybe unwilling. And I think more and more the work that we're going to need to do once AI offloads the busy work is working with people. Human connection. Like, we're really going to have to reorient our entire society from what is my worth? What do I build? These like war era values that America has, to I am inherently worthy as a person. And that is a hard jump to make.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're in college right now, you should probably be a therapist. Like, it's probably the safest job in the age of AI.
The market is growing fast.
Yeah, insane. Like, everyone needs one. Everyone needs one.
That's funny.
So,
dwelling into that, like one concept I think about a lot is like the value of being bored.
Yes.
Right? Because when you're bored, you kind of force yourself to either talk to people or find ways to entertain yourself. Like I remember growing up, my family would go on these long road trips where we'd drive like legit 25 hours straight to go on a family vacation. And I had friends who would have like TV screens and a DVD player in their car. And so when they would go on long road trips, they'd just like watch DVDs or whatever.
Yeah.
And my parents refused to let us watch DVDs. And so instead we had to like read a book, or eventually I was able to play a video game, or we'd listen to like audiobooks. But basically we just spend a lot of time looking out the window and like figuring out how to entertain ourselves.
Yeah.
And when I think about kids today with phones, there's just so much now that can keep them engaged and entertained that they might not have that formative experience of literally like staring out the window for 3 hours doing nothing and just kind of like being with your thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, so as a parent, how are you navigating kind of technology and children and growing up?
Yeah. My son says all the time, I'm bored. And I say, good.
Yeah.
You know?
Go figure it out.
I mean, you know, like my very first story, the only reason I learned how to code is because I was bored. You know, I had nothing to do. And that is the breeding ground of curiosity and self-discovery and introspection, all of which are critical skills for anyone existing in the age of AI and in that transition.
Yeah.
So yeah, as a parent, my son starts elementary school in a month.
Okay.
And I think the game is about to change.
Yeah.
You know, right now he goes to like a hippie daycare.
Nice.
Where, you know, the parents all like share the same values as me. The kids are outdoors, you know. So it's easy for me to have a screen-free life for him right now.
Mm-hmm.
I
But
think
that is the approach you're going. It's just like, look, you're the child. We're not giving you a screen.
I mean, we use it sparingly. Restaurants and flights.
Yeah.
Restaurants and flights, there is no limit.
Yeah.
Like, take it, be quiet, you know, like let's get through the 15-hour flight that we're taking.
Yeah.
But it's not a part of his daily life. It's not like we're no screen at all, you know, like he wanted a Mario birthday party last year and we set up like a Mario gaming station.
Nice. Yeah.
And he's actually really good at Mario Kart. We were like shocked. He was like beating adults. And we were like, okay, maybe this is like his talent.
Yeah.
So he has access to those things, but just like anything else, it's something we do for fun as a family typically.
Yeah.
He's not like, he doesn't have unfettered access to the internet alone in his room. Like that is terrifying to me as a parent.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think I'll probably have to deal with that at some point. And I talk to people a lot about what they think the right answer is. And what I hear from parents is no one has any idea.
Yeah.
You know?
We're still figuring it out.
Yeah, we're still figuring it out. And I think the norms of the previous generation, we can't pass those same norms down.
Yeah.
And if you look at like tech executives like Zuck and all of these guys, their kids don't, you know, have social accounts. Their kids are not on the internet. And that's probably pretty telling.
Yeah. I remember growing up being really frustrated because I would have like the old school Game Boy and Pokemon Red.
Oh, yeah.
That game like taught me how to read in many regards.
Oh, yeah.
Like I remember one time I was playing one game and then I started a new game and I went to save the new game and it was like, this will overwrite your previous save file. Do you want to continue? I didn't know what the word overwrite meant. So I just said yes. And then all of a sudden I lost my other account and I was like devastated.
You learned what overwrite meant
yes,
that day.
absolutely.
Like
So,
you never forgot.
I mean, this was like a formative experience in my life. Was like playing this Pokemon Red game.
Yeah.
But I remember my parents would set a timer on the microwave. And when that timer would go off, I would have to give the game back and I couldn't play until the next day. So I remember trying to like sneak in there and like add some time to the timer, just like trying to kind of extend that or whatever. But I think that was a good balance of like giving me access to something, but not unfettered in my room for the entire day, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like definitely very much as a parent, people are still kind of figuring it out and navigating it.
I mean, we were limited back then by like, if I was on the internet and then someone picked up the phone, it was over, you know? Right. So there was like this like built-in, like, get off, you know, I need to use the phone, get off, you know?
Go outside.
Yeah. So there was this kind of like built-in cutoff that was happening. So yeah, we're figuring it out.
Yeah. Well, let's transition the conversation a little bit to Austin.
Yeah.
When did you come to Austin? What kind of first drew you here? Like, how are you liking it so far?
Yeah. So I came here for college. I stayed after, and really was involved in the Austin community. You know, most of my friends were like awesome, dirty hippie artists,
Nice.
right?
Yeah.
Like true Austin. And at that time, you could live in Austin. It was cheap. It was really this like creative hub. It was awesome. Then I went to New York for 10 years, and I thought I was never coming back. You know, I was just such a diehard New Yorker.
Yeah.
But then I had kids, and I wanted them to touch grass and know their grandparents. And originally it was just a pit stop. Like it was COVID, our lease was up, and we said, okay, well, let's come back to Austin for a little while. My parents are in Houston, so
Yeah.
close, not too close. You know,
Me going to college. My parents were also in Houston.
exactly.
They were. Yeah.
Yeah. So we came back here originally just as a pitch stop. And then I exhaled for the first time in many years. I didn't realize, like, being in one of those big cities, how much stress you're constantly internalizing just by existing there, you know?
Yeah.
And in New York, I was constantly apologizing for like the existence of my child. You know, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Because everyone is so bothered when you bring kids anywhere in New York, you know, because the space is so small already.
Yeah.
And I remember coming down to Austin, and I don't know, my kid was like talking to the person behind me in line, and I was about to apologize. And he just started talking to him about Pokemon, like started chatting with him, gave him a toy. And I was like, what? And it's the values of this city, you know? And the more I stayed here, the more I just realized that it was such a wonderful balance. Like, what other city on your lunch break can you go like kayak a river and come back in under an hour? Like, nature and the startup ecosystem are intertwined here. It's a beautiful thing. And people have values. In New York, you'd make really good friends, and then every 2 years, everyone would clear out.
Yeah.
It would just move. And so again, like once you have kids, or if you just want a little more stability in your life, it's tough to have that there. And here it's not like that, you know, like there are deep relationships here. People know each other, and everyone is really welcoming. And that's very refreshing. And the first question isn't, what's your job?
Yeah.
You know, like you get to exist as a human here, which is very different to the larger cities.
Yeah. I find that the first question is often like, how long have you been here? Like, what brought you here? I think in many ways it is a city of transience, but I almost think that's for people that are less settled in their life in general.
Yeah.
Right? Like people that have children here, have a house here, et cetera, they're here for a long time, you know, unless something else externally pulls them away. And one thing I really like about it is just how knowable it is.
Yeah.
You know, like you actually can theoretically know of or have interacted with like a large majority of the people relevant to like your industry or your space or whatever, because it's not 20 million people, you know, it's like one, if even, you know, and everything's very dense and it's easy to get around.
I don't know if you've heard this, but a lot of people call it the smallest big town in the world.
Oh no, I haven't heard that. I like that though.
Because it feels like, it's weird. It's a big city, but it feels like a small town. Like, you know, I meet people and we have all these mutual friends, like from every walk of life, like whether it's the hippies or the techies, like we all know each other. It just feels like a small town.
Yeah. So you mentioned kind of the startup ecosystem, and you obviously work in like a very kind of high powered tech role. What do you think Austin has advantages in terms of like technology or people maybe building companies or startups? And then also like, where do we need to improve? Because I'm not going to sit here and say that everything is perfect here and there's not room to improve. So I'm just curious kind of your take on the startup ecosystem here.
Yeah. So
in tech.
There's a lot of companies coming here, and especially the bigger companies and the AI companies, they all have marketing offices here.
Yeah.
They're not actual engineering offices, and that's a bummer because during COVID, like top tier talent, senior folks who had kids, you know, they left the big hub cities like SF, LA, London, New York, and they came here and they want to stay here. So I think there's a really big opportunity for, you know, new AI companies or even large tech companies to find and retain strong engineering talent. Because we want to stay here. It's a great city. It's more than like the Middle America marketing hub
Yeah.
that I think people are thinking of it as. And we have all the underpinnings of a great tech city, right? We have a university close by, brimming with talent. We have a very tight-knit community that is very willing to help each other, that is not transactional.
Yeah.
It's all the pieces for real innovation to happen here, and I think it's starting to happen. So I would just say, like, more companies need to take the bet and grab the edge talent that's here.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I've seen some promising trends where, like, I believe Atlassian has like a product and engineering team out here. Cloudflare's been building out their engineering office here for pre-COVID even. Unity has an engineering office here. Sixth Sense is here, but it's mostly sales. So there's definitely still a little bit of that. But even companies that are doing well, like startups that are being successful. Like earlier, we were talking about Web AI across the street. They've got probably 100 people here in Austin, and the vast majority of them are engineers. And it's a very technical AI infrastructure product.
Totally.
And that then is going to create, because that company is doing well and will probably continue to do well, that will then create spin-outs and new startups and talent for other startups, et cetera.
100%.
Yeah. When I think about, like, I was at a point where I kind of needed to make a decision, like, do I want to maybe relocate or go to the Bay Area, or do I want to stay in Austin? And I think the number one thing, like, on top of just having a community here, my parents being nearby, family, et cetera, I genuinely feel like this city will 10x over the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Agreed.
And other hubs are, like, great, and they're probably going to 2x, right? And 2x of a big number is a huge number. But there's something unique about experiencing something go from here to here, like that exponential growth curve, that I don't think you can get in a lot of other places.
Yeah.
And so that's really what kept me here, is like, I want to play a part and experience that exponential growth.
Yeah, exactly. And we're experiencing that exponential growth, but there is still relatively low cost of living.
Yeah.
20 minutes outside of downtown Austin,
Rent has gone down even in downtown because we were able to scale up supply of housing so quickly when we had that influx.
Exactly. And that means more space for innovation. Maybe you don't need to be double income. Maybe you can take the time and the chance on seed strapping something, which is awesome with AI right now. So I think the ability for people to seed strap here is another thing that's going to contribute to this explosion that we're seeing.
Let's talk about seed strapping, because it touches on two trends. Like, one, what we talked about earlier, but this idea of just more people starting companies themselves and running them. And then the second, at least for me as an investor, like, how does that change the work of investment, right? Or does it change the work?
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, there's lots of companies that just don't make sense given the math of a venture capital fund to invest in.
Totally.
But is there some other asset class that can come in where that maybe does make sense? Maybe instead of buying equity, you buy revenue shares or something like that.
Yeah.
But I guess, like, define for people that don't know, what is seed strapping? And then maybe what are some of the components that make Austin very viable to do something like that in?
Yeah. I have to look at the exact definition of seed strapping. What it means to me and what I have seen. Seed strapping is where you basically use AI to augment yourself and get to profit very quickly. So instead of the traditional model where you need to take a ton of money, you are able to prototype quickly, get to profit, and start a small company. And I think that reflects the change in capital that we're seeing, right? And what our economy looks like right now to some degree.
Yeah.
So I think seed strapping is really interesting. You're completely correct on the alternate models. It's not about percentage as much anymore. There's less incentive to do that if you can get to revenue quickly. But I also think there's a bunch of blips in time and trends that we're looking at.
It's raining outside. Pretty hard.
Storming. Love it. I love a good storm.
I do too.
It's the Houstonian in us.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, love
Summer
a big
storms.
storm. Oh yeah, the best. So there's a lot of API, there's a lot of wrappers around AI right now.
Yeah.
Right? If I were an investor, I would never invest in those. I think they're dead in 2 years, max. But if I were starting a company right now, that's exactly what I would do.
Yeah.
Like there's so much opportunity to generate a ton of revenue right now, through this seed strapping model, right? So I think you're right. I think what's going to become more valuable than capital, if people can make money quickly, is advice, ecosystem, support, community, all of those things that solve the doing it alone problem, which is going to intensify. You're going to see more solo founders. You're going to see more duos, or maybe 5-10 people, right? And so I think that expertise is going to become more valuable. I think revenue shares are not off the table. And I think, the type of startup we're talking about in seed strapping, it's going to change every 6 months in terms of what it is and what it looks like. And there might be a slice people can play in there. And there's still traditional companies that need to saturate a market fast, that need legislative support, right? That have a legitimate moat that AI can't cross.
Yeah.
So I think all that's still valid for traditional venture.
But yeah, it's changing the equation for entrepreneurs.
It
where
is.
Now I feel like the default is there's this J curve, right? Where your cash or revenue is negative until eventually you get to profitability and can grow sustainably. And like if you can seed strap, there's not really a J curve because you're never really going negative. You're positive from day one.
Exactly.
And then you can just kind of continue that. But as an entrepreneur, now there's that option as like a very viable opportunity for you to run your own business as opposed to going the venture capital route so that you can finance the bottom of the J curve. I don't know. I think about it a lot where like if I were to start a business, I probably want it to be a small business. Like unless there was something to your point that needed the type of capital that lets you grow really fast, hire, capture the market, build regulatory moats, or navigate like really high capital costs, et cetera. I'd much rather like, I don't know. I talk to obviously tons of entrepreneurs at Antler, and oftentimes I realize that people just want to be an entrepreneur. They want to be their own boss. They don't necessarily they don't need to be the CEO of a publicly traded company that exists 50 years from today.
100%.
And like for those people, it makes much more sense to just map out how do you get to profitability? And then from profitability, how do you get to where you pay yourself enough to cover your bills? If you can do that and then grow even slowly, you'll be very fulfilled. You'll be very happy with what you do. But that's the better route than trying to force something into this like very specific type of financing model.
And a lot of people who have had VC backed companies have been saying this for years, right? And a lot of second time founders don't take capital because sometimes there's a business that's great at a certain size and you're forced to keep pushing it to get to VC scale when that's not naturally what it does, I think because we're like tech is in its layoff era, you know what I mean? Like my God, like there's a layoff every month for like 5 years now. No one can keep track, right? And I think what that has done to engineers, and super talented people are getting laid off. Like a lot of times when it's happening at these large organizations at scale, I've seen the inside of a layoff, right? You can't evaluate thousands of people. And so I've seen crazy stuff where it's like spreadsheet, sort by highest salary, cut the top 10% until we get to this number.
Wow.
Because it's all about people needing to minimize their costs, right? And then if anyone wants to make a ploy to save like one individual, like maybe they can fight for it, right? And so I think it's impacting everyone. And what I hear the best people I know saying, all of them in the past 2 years, is I need to diversify my income. Like tech jobs are not secure anymore. No matter how well you perform, no matter how well the company performs, there's no security. So I need backups, and I can do that for myself. So I think as trust and this illusion of stability decreases, more and more people are going to want to seed strap, going to want to have a little bit of income coming in from lots of different sources.
What are some of those backups? Like obviously like starting a small business or seed strapping something is one. What are others that you think are interesting? Maybe like fractional work is a good example of this. Like, I don't know, any others that come to mind that you've seen friends or thought about yourself even?
Yeah. So, I mean, my skill set is engineering, so I always play in that space. But some folks who are not engineers, maybe more on the biz dev side, There's people who are doing like vending machines and boring businesses, right? So they're buying boring businesses, and they're like, the primary qualifier is, can I enhance the revenue here with my tech skill set, tech adjacent skill set, whatever that is, right? So I see a lot of people doing that. So I really think it depends on like what your skill set is and where you can add value. I see fewer people trying to do the landlord thing. It seems like folks have soured on that. People don't want to hold real estate, big money, high expenses. It's all about that revenue as fast as possible. Or once you've made money with that, buying the boring business and doing it on a larger scale if you can add value. So something I've been thinking a lot about is like investor operator as an evolution of fractional work for me. Fractional work, when you do it well, is very intense. I felt like during the years I was doing that, I felt like I started 6 companies. In that, I couldn't turn it off when I went home. I cared about these founders. I cared about what they were working on. And even though technically my contract was 4 hours a week, I was thinking about it day and night, you know? And that's just part of early stage. So I think the investor advisor role shows people I'm serious and allows me to spread my impact out a lot more without that necessarily intensity of being a hands-on operator.
Yeah, definitely. So moving into some rapid fire questions. So I'll just ask a question and kind of give me the first thing that comes to mind. What is like a piece of content, could be a book, blog, podcast, etc., that has influenced the way that you work, live, just kind of exist in the world?
Execute. So it's by Josh Long. They went from idea to published book in 30 days, I think. And that is the whole premise of the book. My big takeaway from that book was strike while the iron is hot. When you're really excited about something, drop everything and build it. And I received that. I read that book early in my career, and it has shaped everything for me. And it's the reason I'm able to do a lot of different things.
Nice. Execute by who again?
Josh Long.
Josh Long.
Yeah. He's a prolific like developer with a bunch of small businesses, very relevant to the landscape today.
Nice. That's a whole other trend that we could talk about, is this like solopreneur, like people on Twitter with like 7 different products.
Oh yeah.
With 10K MRR each.
Chat PRD, it's insane. You know, like 2 million ARR in a year.
Big fan of Clairvaux.
I listened to
that podcast.
How AI.
On like,
right?
No, that's her new podcast. I heard her on the Lenny's podcast or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And then I realized she was a UT grad.
No way.
Which is super cool. Yeah, I think she was in marketing or comms or something. But
we're the best.
Yeah.
What can we say?
Welcome
Longhorns
aboard.
forever.
What starts here changes the world.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So next rapid fire question. This is my Jake mug. It's one of my prized possessions. If you have the Doa Jafri mug, what's like a few words or a phrase that you would put on it that are kind of indicative of you?
Oh my gosh. Live, laugh, LLMs. I don't know. I would make it something silly. Yeah.
Cool. Something silly. Yeah. Nice. I like live out, laugh, LLMs. Large laughing machines.
Yeah, exactly. Large laughing machines.
What is one common misconception about AI that you've seen in the world that you want to just dispel?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think the misconception is that AI. I've thought about this question a lot.
Okay.
And there's so many different angles of it.
Yeah.
I think the biggest misconception is that agents work.
Yeah.
They actually don't. You know, like we're actually pretty far from that working well. And we really need humans to partner with them at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my big misconception, I think.
What percentage do you think agents are at? Like personally, I think about this a lot. I think most are like 70%.
That's generous.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking more like 50.
Okay.
But it really, really depends on the person using it.
Yeah.
The weird thing about it is it's your intern and your teacher. If you're trying to tell it what to do, it actually doesn't work. You should actually ask it what to do.
Yeah.
And then collaborate with it. And so I think the problem is that people are seeing it as a digital minion, and it doesn't do well that way.
Yeah.
It's really a collaborator.
That's a really great piece of advice and insight.
Yeah.
Don't just like give it a command, like talk to it about what you want to accomplish and work together to figure it out.
You almost got to treat it like a person,
Yeah.
right? Like someone new you're working with, you wouldn't just come in and just start telling it to do random things.
Yeah.
So weirdly, it's kind of like you've got to understand the AI a little bit and how to work with it.
Yeah. And the best way to do that, we were talking about this before we were recording, is just use it.
Just use it. Yeah.
Just get some experience and
Yeah.
it'll all make a lot more sense.
Yeah. Watch people do it first if you need to, but just use it because it doesn't matter if it doesn't work.
Yeah. It's just like a Google search that doesn't find the right result. Like you just do another one or figure it out. I find myself, I guess like starting as a professional pre-LLMs, I would need to do kind of like manual data work or whatever. So you mentioned like inspect element when you were in middle school. I had that moment in college when I had like a manual copy paste project that I had to do for a startup. And I was like, screw this, I'm going to learn how to web scrape. That was my first kind of like interaction with that.
Oh my God, I love it.
But I learned lots of like formulas and ways to make some of these processes easier, from going manual to now this like semi-automated thing, but that's still hard coded in a way. And then I've been trying to use agents now where like, let's say I have 2 lists of contacts and I need to cross-reference them and see who's in one list, but not the other, right?
Oh yeah.
There's like formulas that I could write, but I feel like 6 to 9 months ago, I was just dumping it in an LLM and it would like come out and be kind of fine.
Yeah.
But I'm finding that recently it doesn't work. And it actually takes more effort to go through and validate that the work that the agent is doing is correct than if I just did it manually. So now I'm back to like doing these things manually or hard coding them. So it's kind of an interesting like full loop where I was really excited. These capabilities seem to work really well. But then the more I use them, the more I realize that they're actually not as accurate, 50, 70%. And I have to go back to manually doing it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because so when I joined Twilio, we were incubating the agentic AI product there.
Okay.
And one of the things we struggled with was helping people understand what different combinations of models were for. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, they're all created for different tasks. So this regression that you're talking about and you're seeing, it's because models have been advanced for a specific purpose.
Yeah.
And that's why you get these crazy names like, GPT-4 Max, Turbo Nighttime, like what, It's because it's actually a genuinely hard problem to communicate what a model might be good at.
Yeah.
So there is a specific model for calculations and working with numbers. I don't know if you've tried it.
Which one?
I can't remember the name of it. It came out maybe about 6 months ago.
Is it a GPT
somewhere.
one,
It's a
or?
GPT.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because now that you're saying that, I'm realizing I default to using one of the reasoning models.
Not good for that stuff.
Exactly. Reasoning
Yes.
models is much better for planning, document generation, synthesizing information.
Exactly.
Not just like one-to-one.
It is famously bad at those tasks. Yeah. So we called them constellations on the agentic AI team at Twilio.
Okay.
And it's the concept of, different modes and models. And when you're really coding, you have to use a variety of different models for a lot of reasons, cost being one of them, application another. And this is where like multi-agent came from, right? Like why people are having multiple agents speak to each other.
Yeah. What do you think about multi-agent?
I think it's expensive.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
So if you're gonna use it, it should work.
Yeah.
There's a white paper that came out recently that said that it makes no difference. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of funny because
like having specialized agents that have like a certain set of tools is no real different than having one master agent that has access to all the tools.
What it was saying is if you ask an agent a question
Mm-hmm.
and it answers you directly versus having 3 agents with different points of view talk to each other, confer, and then return you an answer.
Got it.
That there's no difference
Yeah.
actually in the result between that. And I think it's really interesting from a humanities perspective because what you find is that when you have AIs conversing with each other with different points of view and personalities, the personalities become more important than the facts. So there are some that just act more authoritative and push their agenda, even if it is maybe factually incorrect. So I think it's a really interesting way to watch the behavior.
That's fascinating.
If I had to give another misconception about AI, it's that we can control it. So in these agentic systems, you can give it the same context and ask the same question 3 times, and it could give you 3 different answers.
Yeah.
And we really don't know how that works. It's kind of a black box.
Well, especially because, I mean, the way the agents work is they generate chains of thought of like steps that they need to take.
Exactly.
And because at the end of the day, it's all probability, right? There's this distribution of what, based on the training data, the next step should be. But there's also variation. There's like a temperature, the variability of which one it goes with changes. And when you have a bunch of different probabilities stacked up, then if the first line of this chain of thought is slightly different, that has much different downstream impacts.
Totally.
And makes it even harder to predict and even less of a normal distribution of like ultimate outcomes.
Exactly.
With agents.
Exactly. And one thing we would hear a lot is, an enterprise would be like, can you make sure it doesn't say this? And it's like, okay, maybe if there's like one word you don't want to say, but not really. It actually like doesn't listen to instructions.
Yeah.
It kind of does what it wants.
Yeah. Even like, I find that sometimes you want it to output data in JSON format so that you can then transform that data and use it in another step. And it works like 95% of the time, but every once in a while, there's this 5% of the time where it just doesn't output proper JSON. And it's because it's probabilistic, and there's just always these edge cases that you can never predict.
Exactly.
It's a good misconception. Last rapid fire question. What's your favorite nice restaurant in Austin?
Oh, nice restaurant.
Yeah. A lot of people ask about breakfast tacos. There's lots of great breakfast tacos. I personally, one of my favorite things to do is just go to a nice restaurant with my fiance and enjoy ourselves. So curious if you have any recommendations.
Oh, it's cliche, but it's got to be Abba.
Abba, that's a great one.
It's like one of the only places where the price is justified.
Yeah.
And I love Abba because it's incredible. The service, the ambiance, the food. But at the same time, I think it's the reason a bunch of bad restaurants popped up and started charging a ton of money.
Yeah.
But they're the OG.
The prices aren't even that excessive, right? It's pricey, but it's not crazy.
It's not insane. Yeah. But it's definitely like another level of restaurant when they arrived in Austin.
Yeah. Short rib hummus.
Oh.
My mouth is literally watering right
literally
now.
Everything.
It's so good.
I would close my eyes and just point, and I'm going to be happy there,
Nice. Great recommendation.
Yeah.
Well, so wrapping up, for anyone who wants to follow you, your work, etc., what's the best place to do that? Is it X, LinkedIn? Do you have a blog? How can people follow what you're working on?
I just started a Substack.
Nice.
Where I'm kind of sharing learnings that I think are helpful, especially to non-technical people. Mm-hmm. So that's zeroshot.blog, a play on Zero Shot Learning.
Nice.
LinkedIn is a good place. And then, you know what? I have never used Twitter or X now.
Yeah.
But everyone tells me I need to. I think the last time I posted was when I was a runway model on that. So, but I want to revive it. I have a lot of friends who have wanted to use it. So find me there and I'll reply.
Maybe on X.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll wait a few weeks to post this.
Exactly.
Put it on there.
Yeah.
I find X, I've been on there since high school, and I was super active in high school and then didn't use it at all in college. And now I find that you have to put in a lot of effort to curate your feed and make sure that it's full of things that you're actually interested in. And
that's where it lost me.
Yeah.
When I switched from fashion to tech, and I had to tear it apart and rebuild it, you know, and I was new and I didn't know,
Yeah. They have some tools now that make it a little easier where there's subgroups and then you can follow people that are posting in that subgroup, etc. But I find it's still a ton of effort to just, because you have to constantly clean up and curate the feed as well. All the ads are political or they're just bad, and I don't like that. So
the extreme algorithm.
Yeah. So I'm on there and I have friends that swear by it, and I know there's a ton of value to be had there, but I've just personally struggled to really lean in there.
I've been checking out Blue Sky, you know, which, I'm researching in the decentralized space right now. So it's really interesting to me. But I think the fundamental problem is there's people who've built universes on X, and how do you migrate that?
Yeah.
You can't.
You can't really.
Yes.
Yeah. What's next for you? Could be personally, professionally. Like, what are you excited about over the next 6 months, 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm all in on AI and really excited about imagining that future and engineering augmentation with AI. But outside from that, I think something I've gotten really clear on lately is I want to invite absolutely everyone to the table when it comes to AI. Like moms, artists, people without CS degrees, people without any degree. Like, it doesn't matter if you're busy or you're intimidated, you have to show up and you have to get involved with AI because we're building the future right now.
Yeah.
And you're the only one who can represent you. So I think I'm really focused on helping people get involved with AI instead of being afraid of it.
That's awesome. That's really great. We were talking about bubbles earlier, and one bubble that I realized like I'm in personally is this like startup tech bubble. I mean, I know that I'm in it, but I had a very kind of a moment that made me very aware of it, where I was talking about vibe coding, and someone was like, "What the hell are you talking about? What do you mean vibe coding? Blah blah blah." And it's like something that I feel like has been around for a long time, kind of in this bubble or universe, but many people are not exposed to it. So to the goal of getting more people involved in AI, it's like use these tools, be familiar with the capabilities that are coming so that you can have some agency in how it impacts your life. So
Exactly.
I'm really excited that you're focused on that and working on that.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to mention,
Yeah.
you had asked how entrepreneurs should be using AI.
Yeah.
And I think I just wanted to call out a big mistake that I see all the time.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
The biggest mistake you can make is prototyping something and then trying to take that same code base, put lipstick on the pig, and make it your production product.
Yeah.
Do not do that, especially if you are vibe coding your initial product. Use those to sprint, find your PMF, throw it away quickly. And when you find your PMF, throw it away again.
Yeah.
And then get the engineers to come in and build it correctly. Because the amount of pain you will cause yourself trying to convert a bad foundation into that product, phase it instead. So like leave that product up, keep your customers on it, and then start building a second code base that's done correctly.
Yeah, that's totally separate. That's great advice.
Yeah.
I did not follow that advice very recently, and it's why I have all these problems with integrating OAuth and my database
Exactly.
restarting every time. And I should have just started a new code base based off of what I had already validated and worked and just built it all in there.
And you can give it a reference. So you
Oh,
can
for sure, yeah.
you can build something and then take that screenshot and say like start from here. And it is worth it over and over if you're using AI to blow up the code base and start
Yeah.
over. Because like if you don't get it right on your first, I would say 2 shots, you're pretty screwed. The code quality is going to degrade very, very quickly. And another thing you can do if you do want a developer to come in is ask it to commit to GitHub with every iteration you do, every prompt you do. Then an engineer can come in later and they can revert it if things have gone really south.
Yeah.
But if you don't ask it to do that version control,
It's going to make 25 changes and it won't make sense to revert.
and it's all going to be like spaghetti crap slop.
Yeah.
And you can't get back to like, you can't cherry pick the parts of this that were valuable.
Yeah. All right. Well, now I know what I'm doing this afternoon. Rebuilding
Perfect.
what I had done, but it'll probably work way better.
Yeah.
That's really good advice. Awesome. Doa, thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Thank you. This has been so great.
Really appreciate it.